question is like reskilling, upskilling, learning new skills will be now rigorously expected of educators to meet the changing demands. Because if the new education policy has to be implemented, it will teachers and educators will have to push their limits beyond. Now, do you foresee an arrangement? And you being such an experienced person and ex-principal, so could you suggest some kind of module or throw some light on what kind of changes would be required in teacher education in the coming months or the year or two? Yeah.
You see, the basic objective of NEP 2020 is to ensure that our education system is in consonance with the rich and diverse culture of our country. And at the same time, it attempts to prepare the student to be at par with the best in the global system. Now, we all know that historically, our education system has focused only on preparing our students for exams. So there was a lot of emphasis on rote learning, on note-taking, note-making, and there was a strict adherence to the syllabus. There was no attempt to really think and go beyond the prescribed syllabus. So NEP now emphasizes on the development of problem-solving, critical thinking skills that were ignored so far, life skills that will prepare our students to navigate through life with relative ease. Now, of course, as Anuradha Madam said, that they have suggested 3 major steps in this direction: the multidisciplinary approach, the development of 21st century skills, and of course, experiential learning. Now, a policy remains a policy until and unless someone is empowered to lead the change. Now, who is this someone who will lead the change? Of course, it's the teacher. So these reforms will have no meaning until and unless we have a teacher at the core of it all. A teacher is the pivot around which the entire policy revolves. He or she is the catalyst who will make it, who will implement these changes and these suggestions that have been given by the NEP. It is the teacher who will create this environment that will create this curiosity in children, where they will develop their ability to ask questions, to explore, to think, to find answers for themselves, set their own learning goals, and of course, also be able to work independently towards achieving those goals. However, the NEP recognizes that the quality, competence, and character of the teacher is central to the success of this policy, because teachers play the most important, the most significant role in nation building. But administrators and school leaders have to provide that environment where teaching as a profession and teachers as professionals can thrive. NEP also recognizes the fact that the dismal condition of teacher education as well as teaching conditions are responsible for not attracting the best candidates in teaching. So it has suggested several reforms to make teaching an attractive proposition, an attractive choice as a profession, to make it as the first choice of the brightest and the most talented young people in our country. There is a lot that can be done to improve the quality of teachers. And of course, they have to be, as we have all agreed, that they have to be given back their lost dignity, their lost respect, status in society. And that doesn't come just like that. It comes with certain, facilities that you give the teacher. Unless you give the teacher proper good working conditions, unless you give the teacher good salaries, to take care of their families, nobody will be attracted to these professions. So as Mr. Ashok Pandey very rightly said, that the fund allocation from the part of the government has to be very, very solid to make all this happen. Unless that happens, unless that fund allocation is there, private schools are doing it because they're doing it from their own funds. But most of our schools are in the non-private sector. They are in the government sector. They are in the villages. They are in the rural sector. So over there, government funding becomes very, very important. So we need to ensure that this funding comes, because only then it will, the wheels of education will start moving. Unless you oil the wheels are not going to move. So that is an important factor that has to be looked into. Of course, a lot of emphasis has to be laid on teacher recruitment policies, which should be absolutely fair, impartial. There should be no political or other kind of interference. Then incentives have to be given to teachers, particularly to teachers to go and work in the rural sector. They have to be given accommodation, or they have to be given special allowances to attract them to go and work there. These are important steps to be taken so that we can move towards achieving what we want to achieve. Then, of course, in the government sector, transfer is a very big thing. Teachers get transferred very often. So that has to be stopped, because that interferes with the continuity, that it disrupts the class, because students in schools particularly get very attached to a teacher. So a teacher frequently moves from one school to another. That disrupts the education, because children get flustered. They take time to get adjusted to the next teacher. So those have to be stopped. Then teachers cannot be, that is another very important point which has been spoken about in NEP. Teachers should not be put on any non-teaching administrative work. Today, teachers get involved in census work, in election work, and during that time, our country is so big, election is a huge thing. So if teachers are roped in there, then what happens to the students? For months together, students don't have classes because the teachers are not there. So this has to be stopped, and the NEP very rightly talks about it and says that this needs to stop, and teachers cannot be engaged in anything other than academic work. Then teachers have to be given the freedom to use the methodology that they feel is most important, not go strictly by what you or I think. Teachers should have the freedom to use the methodology that he or she thinks is most appropriate for the kind of children that he or she is dealing with. So that freedom has to be given.
How can we design a system for such a plot for educators as well, where what are those future mapping skills for educators?
While Rita was talking, and she has given such a beautiful narration of teacher development program, and I was almost tempted to tell that despite India being such a huge country and such a large number of unemployable youth, India is a vitamin T deficient country. You know what is vitamin T? T for teachers, right? And she talked about one group goes and the next group comes, which means we need a long pipeline of teachers. But that pipeline right now is dried up. So I think collectively we have to think about as to how that pipeline can have a continuous supply of teachers. So that is what I thought that I'll add to what Rita has said. You're talking about future skills, right? I think a lot of mind shift has to take place. This policy talks about certain principles which are not written in so many clear words. But there are three basic principles when it comes to teaching and learning the policy is talking about. One principle is presentation to the children, that how teachers are going to present their lessons. So lesson planning, the pedagogy, the assessment, that all will come in that category. Let us say presentation. The second principle is expression. How the children are going to express themselves about their experiences with learning. and not only learning of cognitive things, but the learning of non-cognitive things as well. And the third principle is engagement with the teaching and learning process. So how teachers and students are coming together and co-designing, co-learning, growing together, that is the main thing. And that is where this policy is positively deviating from its previous pronouncements. Now, if we closely look at these three, Devyani, I think we had to think about that myth that your high percentage in 10th class, 12th class is going to take you far, I think that is busted long time ago. And if we are not acknowledging it, I think we are committing some kind of a suicide, right? And therefore, what has come out very clearly, the latest I can quote to you is the LinkedIn survey, which has identified what are the future skills required uh, out of a survey of CEOs. And the topmost is leadership qualities, the innovation, communication, people's skill. Now, I think we have to embed these things into our curriculum and as to how we inculcate these things. And that will ensure the future of the children. And Anuradha ji was talking about COVID-19 experience. I think apart from making even the most stubborn amongst us to adapt to technology, I think we have also adapted to a lot of things, looking inwards, self-belief, emotional connectivity, resilience, kindness. I think we started very hurriedly forgiving each other because we didn't know what is going to happen to us. So I think these are the kind of things that we have to bring to the children, and that will prepare them for their future. And the society also needs that, where everybody is sensitive about the needs of each other. And that sensitivity will become the antibody in the society, like we are looking for antibodies within ourselves to fight the COVID.
So I am handing over the vitamin T to Sandeep ji, asking him how will you use this vitamin T to reboot the education system in India with all the changes that is being taking place. As Dr. Pandey and other panelists suggested, it is basically it is a collaborative effort between the central government, state government, educators, and the whole country. So what is your view on that? How do we think from a progressive view, or what is it that your take on that?
How do you prepare the teachers? I mean, teachers they can't be developed in isolation, right? You need to have a very robust system in place to ensure that the teachers, both for the pipeline and also for the supply, right? It's not only the pipeline, but also like once someone is in the system, then how you are nurturing the motivation and the excitement of that person to be really effective in the profession, right? So, I mean, I have at least got a chance to work with as many as 200,000 teachers in country, and also very closely with teachers in Africa, right? So I was worked in like to developing world, and I've seen the teachers, I mean, mostly across the board, 25% of the teachers at any point in time, they don't want to continue in their profession. And why they don't? Because they don't see any value, and they don't have any social capital which they can cherish upon. And mostly what they've been labeled is a kind of whatever is happening in education in terms of the children learning outcome, the blame goes to the teachers, and there is a lot of carrot and stick style of providing a kind of support or the punishment to the teachers basis on their success and failure, and one teacher is being held responsible to certain things, whereas teaching as a community is not being seen as a profession which could be nurtured, developed, and motivated to do well. So I think that relates completely. I mean, if you track that back to the system, so instead, I mean, not only thinking about the teachers, but also think about the system where they operate in. A lot of teachers when they join the profession, I mean, I completely agree with Devyani that teaching as a profession perhaps in India is not the first choice. But at the same time, a lot of people who really want to be teacher. I mean, it's like if you look at the government education system, young professional, when they come and they join the teaching profession, I think they feel very motivated and they come with a kind of very pride, saying that okay, I will change the school. And I have seen multiple schools be changed by the teachers who has just joined the system. But by being in the system for like 10, 20 years, the kind of treatment they receive from the system, the kind of I think the reward and punishment arrangement, the kind of recognition processes are inbuilt in the system, they tend to get demotivated because they are not doing anything, they're not getting any additional recognition while doing something different from their peer. So if someone is doing good in the education system, mostly in the public education system, I think they are seen, by their peers in doubt, right? So they'll be like, no, why you are doing so much if you're not going to get more, right? So there's a lot of peer pressure of not doing good as well in the system. So how do you change the mindset? How do you change the behavior of teachers and teacher educators and the system as a whole to ensure that there is a proper, system in place which is motivated enough to help teachers to grow and feel autonomous and make sure that they feel king and queen of their classroom and do whatever is most appropriate for their children and not whatever is most appropriate for their officials, right? So that's how I think the trend has to change. The focus has to change in teachers' mind, and that cannot change until you have a very clear understanding at the system level